Okay, let's jump right into this. What if I told you that a totally absurd internet meme spat, literally just a YouTube creator and a commenter going at it, is actually masking a massive geopolitical battle over the very future of human governance? Seriously. Today, in this explainer, we're unpacking a conflict where intellectual property law, artificial intelligence, and the ideological legacy of the British Empire all violently collide, right in a YouTube comment section. It's an absolutely fascinating rabbit hole, and it is unfolding right in front of us.
So here's our structural map for today. 1. The Skibidi Toilet Ultimatum. 2. The Flag War. 3. Architect versus the Librarian. 4. Engineering Legal Abundance. And finally, 5. The Mechatronic Fork.
Starting off with Section 1, the Skibidi Toilet Ultimatum. Now, just look at the sheer whiplash-inducing contrast we're dealing with here. On one side, we have this piece of highly chaotic internet satire. You've got tech billionaires, Elon Musk carrying Jeff Bezos, carrying Donald Trump, stacked up like a tower, literally facing off against a giant purple robot from that viral Skibidi Toilet series. I mean, it looks like pure, unfiltered internet absurdity, right? But then, on the other side, we see the response from Damien Walter, who's a British writer and YouTube essayist. He issues a very real, very stark copyright ultimatum, basically demanding the post be taken down within 48 hours or face legal action. And right below that, we get this explosive reply from the image's poster, Kyle McLean Smith, also known as Best Fape. Smith just shoots back. Okay, MI6, fucking Brits, hankering for 1776 again. In just one single sentence, he instantly elevates a standard copyright threat into this wild framing of international espionage and revolutionary resistance.
That brings us to Section 2, the Flag War.
Because, well, Smith didn't just back down from the legal threat. Actually, he doubled down. He used ChatGPT to actively alter the meme. He deliberately prompted the AI to remove the American flag that Elon Musk was holding in the original image, and he replaced it with Canadian and British flags. This wasn't just some random aesthetic edit, you know? It was a highly calculated move to visually enforce an outsider narrative onto these tech elites. He's stripping them of their American symbolism and essentially rebranding them as foreign entities operating on American soil.
And Smith's underlying logic becomes super clear when you look at his actual commentary. He wrote, "The Republic is acting as an empire because the empire is the Wizard of Oz parasite controlling her brain. My MI6 friend, Elon, is Canadian, not of our Republic." So, looking at this impartially, Smith is making a very specific, deeply rooted geopolitical claim here. He's framing figures like Elon Musk as quote-unquote Canadian outsiders. He's basically arguing that they operate under a foreign, overarching empire logic rather than representing the true foundational interests of the American Republic. It's like he views the Republic as a host that's been infected by an imperial parasite, one that's masking its true intentions behind these larger-than-life tech billionaires.
And he really leans into this revolutionary rhetoric. In a follow-up comment, Smith explicitly invokes the First Amendment and draws a hard demarcation line. He frames this whole overarching struggle as a defense against what he calls the King of England's apostasy and a parasitic capture of the Republic. So he's actively drawing this historical parallel between Walter's institutional legal threats and British intellectual colonialism. By doing that, he's positioning his own digital actions as the modern equivalent of the spirit of 1776, fighting back against an encroaching empire.
Moving on to Section 3, Architect versus the Librarian. Our sources lay out this conflict as a sort of asymmetric narrative operation. On one side, we have Kyle McLean Smith, operating as the architect. He is a legal engineer. His tools are entirely functional infrastructure, auditable code like his SeedTreeDB, and free/libre and open source software, or FLOSS. Then, on the other side, we have Damien Walter, the librarian. He operates as what the analysis calls a special forces storyteller. His tools are institutional capture, academic literary theory, and 21st century myth-making through his various media platforms. So what we're looking at here is a fundamental structural divide: decentralized, transparent code built from the ground up versus centralized institutional storytelling dictated from the top down. Which leads us into Section 4, Engineering Legal Abundance. To really understand Smith's tactics, we need to look at ADCL, or Acceleration-Driven Clause Learning. This is a technique derived from automated program verification that actually mathematically collapses long proofs. Think of it like taking a highly complex logical process that usually requires, say, 10,001 steps, and just instantly reducing it down to 3 steps to achieve what's known as accelerated resolution. And Smith applies this exact acceleration logic to legal engineering. So for him, a copyright threat isn't just something you defend against in a traditional, drawn-out court battle. Instead, intellectual property becomes an active kinetic engineering tool, one that's designed to mathematically collapse these slow bureaucratic structures from the inside out.
And finally, Section 5, the mechatronic fork.
The analysis presents this concept as the ultimate geopolitical choice that we are all facing right now. Down one path, we have FLOSS, distributed systems. These are networks that are totally auditable, decentralized, and peer-to-peer. But down the other path, we have what's called an opaque monoculture. These are systems that are highly centralized, surveillance-based, and heavily narrative-driven. So this single conflict, which was born in a random YouTube comment section over an absurd billionaire meme, is actually acting as a microcosm of this ultimate battleground. It really forces us to look at the underlying architecture of our digital world and ask which structural future is quietly being built around us.
And the way Smith connects the ideological dots here is just fascinating. He alleges that Walter's institutional storytelling basically acts as a narrative soma to pacify the public. He even links this all the way back to Julian Huxley's 1957 coining of transhumanism, which is the centralized biological engineering of the human condition. Smith argues that this modern mythos is actually masking the construction of a surveillance state. He points directly to the Palantir paradox. He notes how figures like Peter Thiel identify as libertarians who supposedly fear a totalitarian state, and yet they actively fund companies like Palantir, literally building the exact central nervous system that a global surveillance state would require. So Smith frames his own decentralized, auditable work as a direct defense against this transhumanist pursuit of what he calls a counterfeit earthly immortality managed by state-level actors. So looking at the arguments and the incredibly stark contrasts presented across these sources, we really have to ask ourselves, which path of the mechatronic fork are we actually heading down? Are we moving toward auditable freedom and peer-to-peer abundance? Or are we drifting into an opaque, centralized servitude masked by powerful storytelling? What this explainer brilliantly illustrates is that modern geopolitical battles aren't just being fought in war rooms or courthouses anymore. They're being fought right now, right in front of us, through internet memes, copyright law, and the underlying code of our digital lives. Keep questioning the systems being built around you and pay very close attention to who is writing the rules. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.